This is Walk Around Your City, A Call to Pray. Author, Donna Sanchez. Read by Donna Sanchez. Day 7. Sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and I am known by my own. As the Father knows me, even so I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. John chapter 10, verses 14 through 15. Notes. Just like every other day this week, I have had one earbud in to listen to quiet instrumental worship music. At the middle school, the Lord had not said anything for several laps, about 25 minutes. When I arrived at the high school, there was a huge loop to walk around, and since He wasn't talking, I decided to switch over from instrumental music to worship music with words. He stopped me and called me out about it. I had been avoiding quiet moments with Him because I felt bored. What He said, though, has changed my perspective on silence forever. The Lord asked me today to compare the characteristic behaviors of sheep and people, so I got my phone out and looked it up while I walked. Word from the Lord. Can you see how beautifully I've provided for you all these years? Never have you been without a single need being met. I've provided generously, despite the years of grumbling. You have never grumbled in the way of failing to be grateful for having a home, a roof over your head, food for your family, a reliable vehicle, and all of your physical needs that I have met. You have seen my hand in all of that and shown gratitude, both in your words and in how you have shared those resources. You have grumbled about the people I provided that you chose. I did not force your hand in marriage. I permitted it. No matter how much credit you give me for choosing your mate, the decision was always yours. You found each other. You chose each other. You chose to enter into a covenant relationship with each other, and you invited me into that union. You have always had, and still have, free will. Own your choices and honor your commitments with gratitude. On your wedding day, I entered into a covenant relationship with you and your husband that I would bless and provide for that union on the condition that you honor me in that union, which both of you on many accounts have failed to do. If you want my blessing over the covenant relationship we have entered into, repent of all the ways you have broken that covenant in your thoughts, spoken words, and actions over the years. If there are ways you are unaware of, pray Psalm 139. Search me and know me. Know my anxious thoughts, and let me know if there are any offensive ways in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. You chose to have a family, whether you fully comprehended what that meant at the time or not. Even those who would say they did not choose to be a parent, chose. Actions on earth have consequences, even if they are as inconsistent as whether or not a certain action will result in conception. I am sovereign, but I cannot cause conception without your agreement in the act of intercourse. My children beg me for families and then spend the rest of their lives vacillating between gratitude and grumbling like the Israelites over manna in the wilderness. This should not be. When you asked for a family, you asked for the most intense training in righteousness one can request on earth. Done right, both marriage and parenting are exercises in self-denial and self-sacrifice. Both marriage and parenthood involve laying down personal preferences for the common good of the family, but rarely is this done well or consistently, including by you. There have been times you have made me proud, and there have been times you have failed miserably at loving your family, but I don't have to tell you that. Today is a new day, a fresh start, another opportunity to choose better. Choose for yourself how honorably you want to finish this assignment you committed to long ago. Your heart has grown bitter at the ways you believe you have honored your end of the commitment and how poorly your husband and kids have honored theirs. I would beg you to reconsider your assumptions of innocence. If you did everything perfectly from this moment forward and received no love or gratification in return, you would begin to understand the meaning of sacrifice, which is the beginning of wisdom, which is at the baseline of holiness. Be holy as I am holy. Pray that I would bless the local resources available in your community. Become aware of them. Who are they? What do they provide? Who do they support? What do they need? How can you help? Even if only, how specifically can you pray? Are there people who provide food, housing, financial assistance, parenting resources, free or reduced cost education, medical or mental health services, physical or mental disability resources, elder care, substance abuse, sexual addiction, eating disorder recovery or rehabilitation, reduced price or free veterinarian services? Rarely have you required these types of assistance, so you may have never considered how desperately others do. Approach this subject with deep gratitude and acknowledgement that, but by my grace, it could have been you with these types of needs. 25 minutes of silence later. You're tempted to change from instrumental worship music to music with words because when we're not actively talking, you want to disengage. Don't. It is the moments between the words your soul perceives that our spirits are in communication. Remember that my spirit will never directly engage with your mind. I will always communicate spirit to spirit. It is in these still, quiet moments that what your spirit knows is able to float up and inform your mind. Don't seek to shorten the process. Remember Thursday? The more skilled you get at simply being in my presence, the more you will hear and know my voice. My sheep know my voice well, but new sheep in the herd have not learned to distinguish between the shepherd and the enemy. Teach them to be still and listen. I was quite intentional when I compared people to sheep and myself as the good shepherd. I could not have used a more appropriate example for a pastor than the shepherd of the flock. Compare with spiritual eyes the characteristic behaviors of sheep and people. Internet research. The reference will be listed in the description of the book. The reference comes from the website sheep101.info. A sheep's behavior is in response to its surroundings and circumstances. Understanding the uncharacteristic behaviors of sheep depends on understanding what characteristic behaviors of sheep are. Sheep are herding animals who travel in groups called flocks. It is a sheep's natural instinct to remain close to the flock. They are not predators, and roaming makes sheep vulnerable prey. A healthy member of the flock will not stray from it. There is safety in numbers, as it is harder for a predator to get to a sheep who is close to the flock. If a sheep strays from the flock, something is likely wrong. Sheep have a strong sense of vision, and they are reluctant to go where they cannot see. They avoid shapes and shadows and startle easily. They will run from what frightens them. Sheep have a keen sense of hearing and will startle at sudden loud sounds like barking or yelling. When sheep become nervous, they are more difficult to handle. To minimize stress, the handler should speak in a quiet, calm manner. It is the strong flocking instinct that makes it easy for one shepherd to look after so many sheep. When one sheep moves, the rest will follow, even if it does not look like it's a good idea. This is why, in Turkey, in 2006, 400 sheep died when one sheep tried to cross a 15-meter deep ravine, and the rest of the flock followed. From birth, lambs learn to follow the older sheep. The dominant members of the flock lead, and the more submissive and docile sheep follow. A sheep will become highly agitated if it becomes separated from the flock. Because sheep are domesticated, it is unlikely that they would survive in the wild, especially in the presence of predators. Sheep who are close enough for bodily contact remain calmer and have a lower stress hormone than sheep without physical contact. Changes in normal sheep behavior can be an early sign of illness or injury. A sheep that is displaying behaviors contrary to standard flocking behavior is either struggling with illness or is lost. Even the last sheep coming through the gate should be suspected of not feeling well, especially if it is usually one of the first. Appetite is another strong indicator of health. Healthy sheep will chew on their cud for several hours every day. Healthy sheep are eager to eat and are almost always hungry. If given the opportunity, they will overeat. They will bleat in anticipation of food and will rapidly approach the one with the feed. A lamb that bleats all the time is probably hungry and not getting enough to eat. An unhealthy or hungry sheep often stands scrunched up instead of stretching out. Lack of appetite is probably the most common symptom exhibited by a sick sheep. For a healthy sheep, supplemental feedings are a good motivator, making sheep friendlier and less intimidated by people. A sheep that is reluctant to get up and move is likely in pain, as is a sheep who is reluctant to lie down and rest. A sheep that cannot relax is under stress, and teeth grinding is another sign that a sheep is under stress. Healthy lambs are usually very active and enjoy group play. As lambs get older, they spend less time with their mother and more time with their peers. Parents and grandparents can tend to become discouraged and disengaged when younger people pull away to spend more time with their peers. This natural behavior does not mean that the child no longer needs the older generation, but rather the older generation needs to watch carefully for signs of illness, reluctance to lie down, reluctance to get up, a lack of appetite, or drastically pulling away from people. As parents, grandparents, teachers, pastors, and other positions of God-given authority, it is your responsibility and privilege to bring these concerns to the throne room of heaven. The burden of meeting the need is mine. Caution parents against rewriting history. In China, the Chinese Bible is currently being rewritten to make Jesus out to be someone he was not. For those who have never picked up a Bible, that new version they are creating will be the only gospel they will know. History books are being rewritten throughout the years to paint pictures of the past in the way the authors want future generations to believe things happened. When older generations rewrite their personal history, as they convey those stories to the younger generation, the altered versions of reality can be extremely detrimental to the development of our young people. Openly share your past mistakes so that kids have the opportunity to learn from yours rather than creating their own. When parents, grandparents, teachers, and people in places of authority are not open with past struggles with authority, sexuality, relationships, and even faith, it creates a world where kids believe that there is something wrong with them because they wrestle with these things. Stewarding young people's souls is not a solitary position or a one-man race, but a team effort. Parenting should be seen as a relay race, where the baton is handed off, in some seasons several times a day, to different runners. In some legs of the race, parents are able to choose who holds the baton, but for most of the race, the parents have very little control. Some holding the baton are very interested in the outcome of the race, and some, most likely with no ill intentions, are sabotaging it. In the first leg of the race, the baton is always carried by the mother, from conception, at minimum, to birth. What happens in that first leg sets the pace for the rest of the race. The baton is then passed many times between hundreds of teammates, parents, grandparents, uncles and aunts, cousins, neighbors, babysitters, teachers, Sunday school teachers, coaches, counselors, peers, bus drivers, employers, and more. Pray for every soul who at some point will steward the baton in your children's life. Shame is a terrible motivator when calling others to repentance. Remember the woman at the well and my gentle approach when addressing her sin? When I plainly stated that she had been married to 5 different men and she was currently living with one she had not yet married, it was simply to gently say, I see you. I see all of you. I know you. I love you. And I want to offer you life. As my followers, the acknowledgement of another person's wrongdoing should be very rare and only approached prayerfully. Conviction of sin is the role of my spirit, not your soul. As a parent, it is your God-given responsibility to address sin and my calling to righteousness, but do so patiently and with the grace of God. Do not address your child's sin until you are able to do so without sinning yourself. You are never to discipline from a place of anger, resentment, or bitterness. Even if you are disciplining the same behavior for the 100th time. If you are unable to approach discipline as I discipline my children, seek godly counsel. Ungodly parenting will give your children the wrong idea about me, and that could have eternal consequences. There is no place for ego in the church. Ego equals easing God out. When a church wants to be known for anything other than Jesus, ego has taken root. Pray that the spirits of pride and rebellion would be replaced by a spirit of humility. The fall of mankind in the Garden of Eden began with pride and rebellion. The fall of many churches began the same way. Pride has expectations. Humility is expectant. Be expectant. The call to ministry of any sort should never be undertaken lightly and without significant prayer. My children are, by nature, of interest to the enemy because he is seeking to lure them into the kingdom of darkness with promises of possessions, power, and prestige. His strategy, in 2 words, is happiness trap. As he did with Jesus, he lays before my children what he knows to be the bait that caught them before, hoping they'll fall for it again. Unfortunately, this strategy often works, so he is persistent. When my children decide to draw closer to me, the enemy feels threatened and throws distraction and trouble in the path, leading them to the conclusion that it was my doing. Ultimately, many come to the conclusion that the price of obedience is not worth the possible eternal payoff. The enemy only needs to cause a hint of doubt for this strategy to succeed in disarming an unfortified faith. The majority of the enemy's time and attention are spent with the believer who has gone all in. This is the Christian who is willing to sacrifice his or her preference, personality, and possessions for the benefit of the kingdom of heaven. For the believer who has committed their life to ministry, the battle for their soul is at an all-time high. The enemy knows that the spirit who has been made new in Jesus Christ is untouchable. The spirit of a believer who has been purchased by the blood shed on the cross is no longer territory the enemy can occupy. Journal. I dedicate this time to you, Lord. Speak, Lord. I'm listening. Open my eyes to how I can participate in discipling and shepherding the souls around me.